Hey everyone, welcome to another time-lapse tutorial. Today we are going to draw this street scene. If you want to practice on your own, you can download the reference photo from the link in the video description below. Now this video is actually the condensed version of the full-length tutorial that I have made for my patrons. So if you want to check out the full tutorial, you can support me on Patreon. Patreon is a monthly subscription service where you can pledge a certain dollar amount to support the artist that you like. Alright, let's get started with this. So when it comes to drawing a complicated sketch, sometimes I would start with pencil just to block out the proportion, just to make sure that I can fit all the subjects onto the page without running out of space or without drawing the subjects too small. So for this particular sketch, there are quite a lot of buildings. There are short buildings in front and tall buildings in the back. There are 2 buildings in front and 3 buildings in the back, and they are all of different heights. I like this scene because those buildings are all of different heights and there is a lot of overlapping happening. We have the short buildings overlapping the trees behind, the trees overlapping the tall buildings behind. So this would make for an interesting sketch. For this sketch, I started by drawing the building at the bottom left. There is a lamppost in front, so I need to draw that lamppost first before the building because it overlaps the building behind. Now the fountain pen that I'm using is the Namiki Falcon with an extra fine nib. So this fountain pen can produce very thin lines and it's good for drawing details. If I use my usual fountain pen, the fine nib Pelikan M200, the lines will be a bit too thick and it's going to be a bit challenging to draw details with thick lines. So for this particular sketch, I decided to use an extra fine nib to draw. So when drawing this building, I think the most challenging part is actually drawing the angle of the roof at the top, because when angled lines are quite close to being horizontal, there may be a tendency to draw them horizontally. So the most important thing when it comes to drawing angled lines is really to spend some time to observe, stretch out your arm, lock your elbows, measure the angle with your pen. Now one technique that I use is to compare the angle to the hour hand on the clock. So if the angle looks like 2 o'clock, then that's the number I'll remember, and when I'm drawing, I will remember to draw that angle properly. So for certain angles, it might be actually easier to find the vanishing point first and then draw those lines pointing to the vanishing point. But for this particular sketch, you may notice that I have started drawing first without finding the vanishing point. Sometimes I get a bit excited about drawing. I just jump straight in and draw, but if you really want to be accurate, if you want to be a bit more careful, a bit cautious, then it would be great to first block out the general composition with pencil, find the vanishing point, find the horizon, and those are the important things you need to do so before you start drawing. That would really help to make your sketch more accurate, to make your proportions more accurate. So I'm still drawing at the building at the bottom left, so I'm just drawing the cars that are behind the people and the van. Now this van is actually drawn from imagination because the reference photo, well, it's cropped off there, so I need to use my imagination to draw. And with this reference photo, it's a bit difficult to see some of the details, some of the smaller details. So we have the building in front, drawing the roofs, drawing bits and pieces of the building. I try to draw the general shape of the building first and then break down the smaller shapes that are within the building. So when I draw a wall, I would divide the wall into half if it's a 2-story building, and then I would divide it further down using the pillars, the columns, and then within the smaller sections I would draw the windows. So now at this stage I was drawing the building behind. So for this building behind, again, there are a lot of angles, so make sure to measure the angles. And also when drawing this building, I need to get the height right. So when drawing, I'm constantly comparing the height of this building to the first building that I have drawn. These two buildings that I have just drawn, they are in perspective, and for the side of the wall that is to the right side, they are compressed because of perspective, so it's actually a bit difficult to draw all those pillars at the right sizes and proportion. So sometimes what I would do is to just represent those pillars with vertical lines, especially for pillars that are right in the background where it's really difficult to see the individual pillars, where it's difficult to differentiate the individual pillars. So with this extra fine fountain pen, it's really easy to draw all those details. So notice how I'm adding the details right now after I have drawn the main buildings. So the bottom left side, that's almost done. Now using the height of the first two buildings that I have drawn, I'm now using that to draw the height of the shop house that is on the right side. Now this shop house is actually about 2 times higher compared to the buildings on the left side because it is much nearer to me. And for the lamppost here, if you take a look at the reference photo, the lamppost is exactly vertical. The lamp at the top of the post, it is vertical. The lamppost doesn't turn to the left or to the right. But for my sketch, I wanted to turn the lamppost to the left a bit to show the profile of the lamppost, because at a glance you can tell immediately that that is a lamppost. If you were to draw the lamppost vertically as you see in the reference photo, then at a glance it may not be that clear that it's a lamppost. So sometimes when drawing, you can make your own artistic judgment to change certain things. So in this case, I decided to draw more of the profile of the lamppost rather than what I see exactly. So there are 2 people in front walking towards me. If you're drawing people from location, again, it's a bit challenging. So when it comes to drawing people, especially when they are moving, try to find the top, which is the head, the midpoint, which is usually the intersection between the bottom of the shirt and the top of the jeans and the bottom of the feet. So you need these 3 points. Once you have these 3 points, you can then draw the different parts between. So yeah, so that's basically the right side of the building. So for the background, these tall buildings behind, they are a bit challenging, especially this tall building on the left side, because this building has a lot of angles. But one good thing about drawing this building is, because this is in the background, you don't really need to draw a lot of details, because if you have too many details, it would take away the attention from the foreground elements. So for the background, I'm just drawing it with very simple lines, very loose strokes. But the main important thing is really to get the angles right, and for that I have actually added some extra pencil lines there. Also notice while I was drawing this building earlier on, I drew the top, and then I drew the bottom, and then I drew the middle, and then I added the details in between, rather than drawing from top all the way down to bottom. The reason for doing that is because as the angles move closer to the horizon, they will become more horizontal. And as you draw from the top to bottom, sometimes it's a bit difficult to get all those angles right. So I try to divide the buildings and draw those angles first at the top, bottom, and the middle, and then fill in all the angles in between. That's exactly the same thing that I'm doing right here with this tall building right on the center of the page. So this is pretty much the completed sketch. In part 2 of this tutorial, I will color this with watercolor. So watch out for that video when it comes out. Thanks for watching. See you in the next video. Bye!